G'day, g'day, g'day. It's Mathematical KM. Remember their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. Okay, I think this is round 3 of the Cold Comfort Cup at the Canberra Chess Club, Thursday night club. And I'm coming in at 14.52, playing a little bit uphill against Mitchell Jones, 16.79. So it's going to be a bit of an arm wrestle. I'm sure we have played each other, but obviously not in a FIDE rated one. Mitch hasn't got me in his list of opponents, so. But needless to say, let's get that out of the way. It was an interesting game, and I played well for a while, and there is a definite lesson to take away from this one, and that would be no side quests. Might work against lower rated people, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So he started with grabbing the centre of the E pawn. I've gone G6, the usual stuff. Oh my god, not the usual stuff anymore. Unless I'm careful, I may not get my double fianchetto. So danger signals. Whilst that pawn is on E4, I do have time if I go now. So I go now. He fianchettos, I fianchetto. He picked that knight up and very nearly... This is a typical place. This is standard wide opening over here. And quite often the knight is placed on F3. And had the knight been placed on F3, we would have snatched away that central pawn. But having picked the knight up, he stopped himself from placing it there, and he's placed the knight on the rim. Knights on the rim are dim. We'll see how well that serves us. So I've gone with the E pawn. He's built the chain there. Let's have a little look at this. I was thinking this was a little bit of prophylaxis, and it's a move we normally make just for his bishop and knight to not let either of them come in. But for this move, knight e7, which is one of the moves that we are intending to make, is better, and d5, something that I've often thought about when they don't put both pawns in the middle. D5 is liked, but he takes, I take. It certainly opens the middle up, and it's kind of a bit of craziness your hippo player's not normally looking for this early in the piece. Anyway, I played that prophylactic one there. He's castled, taking the other pawn forward. It's plus 0.7. It's typical of, with that space advantage, what you're expecting to be looking at with the hippo at around this stage. He brings that knight across. I bring a knight in. The advantage to white's dropped to about 0.5, which is interesting. He brings his queen forward. My other fianchetto. This one has got a don't move that pawn, baby. And again, against lower rated players, this is the sort of thing that can happen, but it's unlikely to against Mitch. But it is something he's got to be aware of. And being fully aware of it, there's now a little bit of granite for when things can change, but that bishop's not quite so likely to be feasting on that rook. Okay, we've nearly got the full thick-skinned hippo, putting that one in. Now it's looking more like a normal hippo, with white having both pawns on the 4th rank there. And it's taken him 3 moves to get the 2 pawns there instead of the usual 2. That might come into... There are 2 choices for black. to move the eval to favouring black at this point in time. And let's have a quick talk about both and also what I was thinking. And this is where the message that I need to take away, starting entering that ANU tournament, 6 games over Friday, Saturday, Sunday from tomorrow. There's a message to take from this one right here, right now. This is the point. And for any of you guys who've been watching and perhaps play the Hippo, number one, subscribe and like. But the point here is A5 is grabbing space where it's being offered, which is incremental improvement, and it's also got something that I tried too hard to get later. It allows bishop to A6, which, things can change, but skewering the queen and the rook there. So, I can see A5 is a bit of a one-move plan with a grabbing space, and it may allow, well, it doesn't actually totally work, but it certainly threatens that, but probably something like a pawn forward protected by the knight. So it's mostly about grabbing space, and white's castled kingside. It is threatening to potentially break open in the middle. So why is it second best when it's a bigger eval to black? Who knows? But getting the king out of dodge and castling kingside as well. So both of which are incremental improvements to my position. And rook c8 is just interesting. Now, you can be creatures of habit, us Hippo players, and there's the habit there, the full thick-skinned Hippo. But take a look, that instead of minus 0.25, we're more than half a pawn away in white's favour, because we didn't grab the space that was offered, or we didn't castle away from that breaking open. Now it's back to 0.3 for white. Okay, so that's a little bit of a lesson there. If there's a heap of space being offered, you don't have to go directly to that. You can play A5, and also castling to the same side makes sense with the middle looking quite so explosive. Okay, he's moved a rook. Interesting that A5 is still a good idea, grabbing that space. Castling to the same side. Might say plus 0.03, but that's still a big improvement from where it is now. So castling's still a good idea. And the third best, B5, is still taking that space. Now, we're about to see, I was aware of that idea, but I thought it was a little too obvious, and also, it could be stopped that way. But this night, this was a problem that was too easily fixed. But I was thinking, can't go. It's on the rim, so that's half of its options gone already. That's no good. And I thought, let's try and arrange for that to be no good. And then if we can threaten it. And this is the no side quests message. I've put at expense to my position a little bit too much effort into trying to trap that knight. And also, I put a lot of effort into trying to trap it, and then one move before it's trapped, it's very easily saved. And, and then I've done damage to my own position. So let's take a look at what I have played. And this is in an effort to cover f4 before threatening the knight, really. And a5 grabbing space, castling makes sense, and b5 grabbing space. We usually wait for white to push, and as a hippo player, both of those moves are usually only in response to what white pushing one of theirs forward. So this was a little bit of a dangerous move. It's not a terrible mistake, but it's going to open the middle up, and my king isn't castled. So overly focused on that side quest. Fortunately for me, and you can look at those black evals, white didn't explode the centre, and probably should have, with my king still in the middle. But he's pushed forward, and look, the three top moves all give black eval. And the first one is, of course, castling. And then the pawn chain, they say, aims at the side you should be attacking on, and that'd be great. And have the rook here, and so castling's best. b5 is taking the space, and a5. The computer wants me to take the offered space over there, but also castle. Now, the little dream that I've had, and this is, you'll see that I'm about to do a bit of circle work with this knight, which is a waste of 2 tempo. Crazy stuff. But thinking about that knight currently can't go here, 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 or here. How am I going to get a pawn to here? That pawn's got to have 2 steps, and it's got to be protected from the queen. So I thought, knight here, step, step. 3 move, complicated plan to trap a piece. Easily untrapped by threatening the end of my pawn chain, giving the knight an escape square, and really threatening to take here and explode the middle, and my king still isn't castled. So this was a bit of a mistake. And let's get that to show 12. Probably could have had worse than the question mark. Oh no, that's... Where's knight to f6? Not a happy move. I think in the full review the computer's called it a mistake there. Anyway, so he's come flying forward. It's, not all over by any means. And at this point, for plus 0.5, the computer actually wants me to take f4. Like, bite on the situation I've got and live with it with my king there. c6, which is putting in a thread at the end of his to match the thread at mine. Interesting. And ignore it and go a5 is an interesting choice. But again, I've done that circle work, brought that back because my knights are covering all of these squares. The threatened pawn is also protected by a pawn and a knight and a bishop. And if he comes forward, I've got a knight and a pawn. I was hoping that by bringing the knight back and trying to keep him out might be the way to go. On that, as you can see, for white's next move. It's not one of the top moves, but I thought that was quite good bringing that knight out. Wants me to take f4 with my pawn. Second best is castling, and I still haven't castled. But it's at this point that I've really gone, and a5 is third best. but I've gone, let's meet in the middle, and I've got that extra, but it's, as it turns out, this is terrible, and it goes to plus 3.3. Really needed to castle before now, so no side quests, and make sure you castle the same side, and then fight it out in the middle. They're the messages. So, but let's see. Beautiful move. He takes. My best is knight takes. Bishop takes wasn't much different. He's brought that bishop to there. And I've given myself the chance for that. He takes with his bishop. I take with my knight. He takes with his knight. And whilst I've already done a couple of strategic level things wrong, which I'm taking away from this game, the next move really needs to be d takes e5. And the second best is plus 5. Third best is what I played, or at 4.96, and then to plus 5 was trying to get that set up, but even now the pawn forward fixes it. And it's such a terrible idea now, because instead of pawn forward fixing it, the knight that's in danger coming back and fixing it means I'm not even going to get a fair exchange. I'll have dropped a piece. And I only really looked at the forward places that knight could move, and that would allow me to take the queen. Knights can move backwards. Remember, knights can move backwards. But that's a tactical error there. But I think the strategic errors slightly earlier are the important ones to take into the games in this tournament. But I think we can pretty quickly go through, being a whole piece down. He's bringing his knights in. I've finally castled. That's a nice forking check, but that's not the worst reaction to that check. He takes my queen, I take his queen, and then his knight's got a little bit of a problem. So I've come out of it 2 rooks and a minor piece versus 2 rooks and 2 minor pieces, and I've got 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got 2, 4, 7 pawns. So down a pawn and a minor piece, which is more than enough against an opponent of Mitch's calibre. He takes there. I've taken. He lines that up. I line a rook up on his knight. He takes. I take. I've got a rook on the 7th rank. Dare I dream? Not really. He brings his bishop in, pinning my pawn so that I'm too slow, hoping to break through with my pawns and get my other rook in and checkmate him. Similar plan, but he's going to be far quicker here. So I bring the rook across instead. He takes. I move that back. So at least swap a pair of rooks, but quite a pretty checkmate with the pawn even is involved. The rook covers there, and the bishop covers here. So the pawn, the bishop and the rook all taking beautiful part. So well played, Mitch. And coming back to, we're going to be looking at, if you guys like videos, you're going to be getting 6. Maybe not directly over the weekend, but by early next week, playing 6 hippos in this ANU tournament. I think 1 on Friday night, 3 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. But as we come back to, where are we? That was a mistake. incremental improvements to the position instead of going a little bit crazy trying to capture a piece. And castling the same side and taking space that's offered. They're the lessons for this Hippo player to try and take to this ANU tournament, and I'll see you guys in the videos covering that. And well played, Mitch. Bye for now.